What is good, everybody? This is Charles from Team COG, and if you guys are here, you guys clearly read the title. Connector is a one-card combo. Sadly, it has to use the Fiendsmith cards. I'm going to showcase you guys a combo now utilizing the Fiendsmith stuff, and I'll do a pro and con at the end of the video, showcasing a skeleton deck list, and go ahead and discuss like the pros and cons of this type of engine. I know a lot of players have been already like, oh, Fiendsmith is probably the best way to play it, and I just have a few opinions about that. But without further ado, please remember if you guys enjoy this type of content and you enjoy this type of video to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, ding that notification bell, and never miss when we go live. And yeah, so without further ado, I'm not going to take all your guys' time here. We're going to quickly go through the video. And before we continue on, normally I do all my content and all my combo videos, all that stuff with live cards. However, I'm not about to spend $300 to $150 just on Fiendsmith stuff just for the sake of this, and we will... There's no point. I actually refuse to pick up the Fiendsmith cards because that engine is a literally ticking time bomb that is going to potentially get hit in some form or fashion, and I have no desire to play any light Fiend deck out there that utilizes it outside of that. So anyway, let's continue on. You're going to go ahead and normal summon out Connector, just like the ancient days of when Isolde was a card. We get to summon out Dolphin. So essentially, Connector is going to do two things, right? Connector is either going to get hand trapped, which it did its job, or it's going to summon Dolphin. You're going to pitch a card and look at the hand, and then you're going to see your opponent's entire hand. So then, depending on the other 4 cards in your hand, you can construct your board appropriately. However, we get to look at the hand, no hand traps. Oh, sad face, no hand traps. So now, instead of making Isolde, we get to make Moon of the Closed Heaven. This card is very similar to Orcus back in the day. Any 2 monsters get to this card, which then gets you to Fiendsmith combo. So of course, Closed Moon turns into Requiem, and then of course Requiem here turns into the Fiendsmith Engraver, which I'm not gonna lie, Konami normally butchers some cards' names sometimes, like they change names that did not need to be changed, but this time they did okay. The Fiendsmith would have been an okay card for this. I think that was pretty cool, but the Fiendsmith Engraver is still alright. Another cool application is you get to go ahead and use the Requiem's effect to equip itself to the Fiendsmith here. Playing Infernobles, which is, you know, an equip-based strategy, so it's kind of cool. You get to similarly follow suit here. But we go ahead and turn the Engraver and the Equipped into the Necro-Equip Princess here. We go ahead and use Engraver's effect to shuffle back either one of our Light Fiends, it doesn't matter in this scenario, to summon back out Engraver. Engraver is literally insane. I just still can't get over this card. It has 3 effects, and you can use all 3. And technically, we don't have to, we don't use all 3 in this turn, but like, we could have. That's what's wild. This card has not a once per turn on it, and I think that's kind of insane when you look at modern card design. But while it's broken, use it while you can. But we go ahead and overlay here into, you probably didn't guess it actually, Constellar Ptolemy M7. If you guys caught my last stream, I've actually been playtesting some Constellars that I've been really enjoying, and this card is part of the Constellar strategy. But you must detach the Engraver here. It has to be Engraver, because what you're going to do is detach for cost and then return the Engraver from the graveyard to your hand. Now we're going to use Engraver, discarding it to go ahead and search out the Tractus. And you're never going to guess what's going to happen now. Can you guess it? We're going to activate Tractus, you fools. But we're going to go ahead and add the Lori. And then, of course, we got to complete Tractus here and pitch Lori. Lori then is going to trigger and special summon itself. Now, with 1 Light Fiend and 1 random monster on the field, we're going to make the Fiendsmith Sequence. I almost pronounced this card. I don't know why it showed Constellar, but I always pronounce this card the Fiendsmith Sequencia. And I've realized I listened to too much DB Grinder, because DB Grinder, for some reason, cannot pronounce cards to save his life. It's the Fiendsmith or Fiendsmith Sequence. Sequence. Maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong, but C-S-E-Q-U-E-N-C is spelled sequence, not sequencia. Drives me nuts. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and activate Sequencia, the Sequence's effect, to go ahead and summon out Lacrimosa. But here, you're going to go ahead and you cannot, I guess you could, but you want to just go ahead and banish the other 2 Light Fiends in your graveyard, keep the Engraver in there, so that you can summon out Lacrimosa, and the Lacrimosa can then use its effect to reboard the Engraver, as you will see here. The Engraver comes out, we get to special summon. Do not add it to hand. I've already had to do this video a few times because I've misclicked, and misclicking really sucks, but that's why sometimes like DB's pretty good, but I prefer the beautifulness of Omega here. We summon Beatrice, the Lady Eternal, everyone's favorite Burning Abyss card. We go ahead and detach, it doesn't matter what we detach, to go ahead and send the Battling Boxer Uppercutter. So yes, you have to play Uppercutter in this type of scenario to keep the Connector a 1-card combo. Does it suck opening Connector plus this? Yes, but in the case if you happen to open Uppercutter plus Connector, you just go ahead and normal Connector and you pitch this off of the Dolphin to go ahead and get it to the graveyard. And then here you could potentially send anything else you want. Any of the Infernoble names, whatever you truly desire. So right now we're going to go ahead and transform this into the Princess, which is probably one of the most insane fire cards to come out and exist, but it doesn't require fires to make. Konami, like, what were you thinking? Locks you in the fire, summon fires, but no fires to make it? Okay. We're going to activate the effect of Lacrimosa here to go ahead and shuffle back the Fiendsmith, or the Link 2, whatever you want, to go ahead and burn for 12. So that means now, if we pay 12 with Museum, we ain't losing in time. It's a draw, which is kind of nice. But anyway, we're going to fire off the Promethean Princess to special summon out the Uppercutter. Uppercutter, of course, is going to do its same old song and dance, and going to add its partner in crime, Spar. And Spar is like, hey, yo, I see you're out on the field, so why don't I just join you? So, of course, here comes the Spar. And then since Spar comes out, Spar's like, hey, I brought a second person. His name's Dempsey, and he would like to come hang out. So Dempsey comes, but Dempsey's also like one of those friends who like continually brings people who are not invited. But since we're going to go ahead and use Dempsey's effect add, we'll just go ahead and in sequence here and just chain Dempsey detaching. Normally I would not do this because if you do this, you could lose both effects to one single in-perm, and that's not smart. But for the sake of the video, detach and then add to hand Renault. Now, finally, after all this bullcrap, we're actually going to see our first Infernoble card here, which is going to be Renault. We're going to special summon out Renault, and then Renault is going to go and add back the Spar. Spar is like that one homie or that one bro that you have that just never is tired, man. He's always on the go. It doesn't matter how faded, how tired, or how thing is, he's always there for the boys. And he's going to come back out and join the boys out here. We're going to go ahead and synchro into Angelica, and we're going to go over here and summon Angelica. Whenever Angelica shows up, she takes us to a trip to the museum, which, of course, we know this is the British Museum because they have all the artifacts. Right now, we're going to go ahead and activate the museum. Go ahead and search out Durandal. Now, if you don't want to play this package I'm about to show you, you just search out Joyous. Joyous is a fantastic equip. I know some players don't opt not to play it, but Joyous does a lot of synergy with the deck with summoning from the hand and also a recurrent from the graveyard. We're going to activate the Durandal. Target here. It doesn't matter. Truly, it doesn't matter which one we target. But we're not chaining Angelic here. We're going to go ahead and add Roland. Struggle for words there. If you guys are familiar, you guys know what Roland does. Roland is just going to be able to equip the Angelica and get us access to Angelica's Angel Ring. But before we continue any further, I would like to go ahead and transform the Dempsey and the Promethean Princess here into an Amblowell. Now, you don't have to do this. You can potentially wait and pop the Princess with Charles, but I don't recommend doing that because then your inboard is just like Charles, just literally Charles with Dempsey and Angel Ring, and that's not okay. That's not what this one card combo is supposed to do. This right here is going to give you the maximum potential interruptions this way. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and summon out the Amblowell. We'll go ahead and activate Roland's effect to equip, targeting Angelica, and then we just chain Angelica here. Angelica flees, but Angelica's going to send Ogier, and then summon out Roland, because the husband comes to the aid, and then this Roland goes to graveyard. Now we go and activate Ogier's effect in the graveyard to equip itself to Roland, and then we activate Museum here. Make sure you make Amblowell before you do this, because if you guys do not know, once you resolve Museum's effect while not controlling Charles, you become warrior locked, so then you have to use Charles to pop this, and it just is suboptimal. But we're going to go ahead and send Malgus here, and Malgus is going to get us a awesome draw. So it's almost, we actually come out +1 by the start of our opponent's turn, because right now we're going to shuffle back 3. We're going to shuffle back one Durandal, one Renault, and we're going to shuffle back the Uppercutter, and we're going to get the draw card. And the reason you shuffle back Uppercutter is because you can send it with Angelica if you want to use Princess to target Angelica and revive the Dempsey. Dempsey will then add you another card. So anyway, we draw for turn. It does not matter what we draw. Gearfried was scripted to be drawn because of just how it goes, and that's okay. We go ahead and summon Charles, go and activate Roland's effect to equip to Charles. Do not use Charles' effect to pop, and then we just make the Link 1 Charles here. Of course, this Charles will trigger. Go ahead and adding us this one right here. Not adding, but equipping the OG Charles. Do not use it. We attempt to move to the end phase. So in the end phase, we're going to resolve Angelica, and we're going to bring her back. And we're going to resolve Roland. Roland's going to grab us Angelica's Angel Ring, and then now we can resolve Charles, which is going to equip... I already forgot to do something. Son of a gun. Okay. Well, that stinks, but we'll talk about it here in a second. This is our inboard right here. So we'll go ahead and go right here. So this is the inboard. Opponent's going to go ahead and play because I clicked here. But we'll just... Okay, here is the inboard. So you should have Malgus equipped here. So then the first thing your opponent does, the spell and trap you get to draw, which means you essentially start with 2 cards in your hand, which is a +1 to the 1 card combo you started with. But here's what the inboard has. You have potentially Princess in the graveyard to target either one of these cards and tag out, essentially. You pop the Amblowell. Amblowell will summon back out a Link 2, which there's not a Link 2 in the graveyard to summon, sadly. Well, I guess technically Sequencia is there, so you can summon back out Sequencia for follow-up. And then if a card is destroyed, Amblowell is a non-targeting destruction. So you get 2 non-targeting, you get 3 destructions technically. You get the Amblowell potentially, Princess and Charles. You have a spell negate and a spell and trap negate. So in a way, you have potentially 4 disruptions off of the 1-card combo. And then if you choose not to destroy Amblowell and you destroy to choose the Angelica, Angelica can dump Uppercutter. Uppercutter rewards the Dempsey. Dempsey adds you the Renault for follow-up. And then you have 2 cards in your hand. I just was a dingus and just hastily went past it and forgot to equip the Malgus. But anyway, Charles cannot be targeted. Charles is 45, so this is an okay inboard with the 1 card. 1 connector did this. This is wild. This is very reminiscent of the Isolde days, minus that we literally went through so much kind of garble just to get to where we are now. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the deck list. Okay, guys, so here is the deck list. So right now we're rocking 42 cards. If you don't want to play 42, just cut the Roland and the Angelica's Angel Ring. Solves the issue right there. You're at 40. But anyway, as you guys can see, there's 3 Engraver, 1 Tractus, 1 Lori. You could arguably cut down and just play 1 if you want to be very simple and just rely on that entire 1-card combo here with the connector. You could probably get away with 1 Engraver, but playing 3 Engraver is still consistency, right? So this is a skeleton. This is definitely up to change, but this is playing connector here. And sadly, if you guys can see here, the deck list is estimated to be up here at $433, and a majority of that is, at least 300 and some of that dollars is the Engravers here. Engravers an insane card. But let's go ahead and talk about the pros and cons of this combo sequence here. The pros, of course, connector. You get to play connector again and look at the hand. And you get to this in a very hand trap heavy format. Being able to potentially bait hand traps or see the hand and rip out hand traps is really good. A con. Everyone's playing 15 or more hand traps, so the likelihood of you being able to loop connector and hitting 2 or more is kind of slim, so it just kind of puts you on possibly it not being enough. Connector ripping, when people would only open 1 to 2 hand traps and connector be able to rip one of them out of the hand, was solid. But right now, connector, if even resolved, would just simply be looking at the hand, ripping 1 hand trap, and staring down 2 to 3 more hand traps, and not being able to potentially do anything about it. Another pro. The deck has a 1-card combo again. With connector being the 1-card combo, you have 4 other cards in your hand to work with, and it is very, very awesome. Con, the cost. If you want, I think currently Fiendsmith Engraver is $133, and if you're trying to do this on a budget, that's a lot of money to spend on a deck that I believe is doing just fine without this particular engine. A con. Speaking of the Fiendsmith stuff, we already know that the Fiendsmith stuff is on a ticking time bomb. There is no way that the genericness of this stuff lasts. It just depends on how many formats is Konami going to let it last. Cards like the Closed Moon and Beatrice are definitely on the chopping block to eventually be touched by the ban list. Doesn't mean it'll happen, no, and then I could say this and then potentially it never happened. But if you're going to spend $300 to $400 on this engine and then the next list they end up saying bye to Closed Moon or bye to Beatrice. If you're down in conspiracy theories and you got your tinfoil hat on, there's a reason why Closed Moon, being an insane card that it is, was printed as a common, because Konami would lose little to no money with Closed Moon going away. Just money for your thoughts here. A pro, the Fiendsmith. The Fiendsmith package alone does so much. It by itself, Fiendsmith Engraver can get you into your nobles. I mean, we just saw by itself, essentially, Fiendsmith is there. A pro. Another pro, essentially, is that any 2 warriors can equal combo. Very much like these old days, you're able to stick any 2 bodies on the field, you're going to be able to make this combo work. It doesn't just have to be connector, just any 2 warriors get you there, which allows you to play cards like Red Lair, Flint Lady, Butter Mountain Butter Spree, Junk Forward. Pretty much any monster. Doesn't have to be warriors, per se. Just any way to get 2 monsters on the field gets you to this combo. So there you have consistency. A con. The extra deck space, as you guys can see down here, is extremely tight. I'm talking there's no room for flexibility. Everything in here is necessary for the combo minus Little Knight. You do not need Little Knight. Little Knight's just literally, Little Knight is the flex spot. And you only need Little Knight if you extend further past this combo, which if you guys can see, if you open any more cards in your hand, there's really not much more you can make. There is no space to play a second Charles unless you cut out Little Knight or Amblowell. And if you cut out Amblowell, your ending board essentially is just Charles, which is 3 disruptions and the princess in the graveyard to target the Angelica, which is simplistic, but Amblowell being a huge body, Amblowell allowing you to recur a card from the graveyard, allowing you to destroy a card also. kind of increases the inboard potential of this, which means you're not just ending on a Charles and a Princess, you're ending on a Charles Princess with a potential pop. So technically you could cut this, but even then you're still really looking at 2 potential flex spaces in the extra deck on top of that. And I think that's about it for all the pros and cons through it. As you guys can see, you're able to still play a lot of non-engine. There's 3 Ash, 3 Imperm, 3 Droplets, 2 Ts, and a Call By. So that's 3, 6, 9, 12 non-engine spots in the deck as of right now. And that's okay. You know, that's decent in a way. But other engines you could potentially look to play is the Sinful Spoil package. However, again, Sinful Spoil package is probably on a ticking time bomb as well, with the OSS potentially being a hit that we could see. But anyway, that is it for this. I know there's probably some more combo sequences and stuff like that, but overall, my thought process of this combo line here is that the pros don't outweigh the cons, and this right here is not a permanent solution, right? Essentially, you're doing a very convoluted combo with the Fiendsmith stuff to pretty much do what Uppercutter or even the Flame Swordsman stuff can do by itself. Yes, you get to play crazy cards like the Fiendsmith, but are you really willing to spend $300 to $400 just to be able to use Connector? It's up to you. That's your call. I'm not your financial advisor. You do it. For me, it's not enough. It doesn't justify it. If Engraver was half its price, maybe, but Engraver is not. Also, it doesn't really feel like Infernobles. It feels like you're playing a worse version of Fiendsmith with this, simply because you're just literally using the Fiendsmith cards to get into, like, if you guys, we were like, how many plays down the line before we saw, like, our first Fire Warrior, right? So, like, if you want to count Connector, at least Connector was a warrior, right? So, for me, the pros don't outweigh the cons. I'm also, like, trying to find, I think one of the common things we see in the Infernoble community is that we get these really good supplemental engines, and people rush to them just because they're good generic engines, but they are not solving the issue of what we've been lacking since Isolde has been gone. And that's what I currently am trying to do and trying to figure out. That's why I've been so strong on the Boxer side of the engine, is because the Boxer package does essentially what Connector used to do, but just worse because we don't get to hand look. But that's what I'm trying to do, is pretty much find a permanent solution, not these temporary solutions, because we all know that the Wanted engine, we all know that even the Fiendsmith engine is on a ticking time bomb, and these are not permanent solutions. They're only temporary for however long Konami will grace us with them. But, however, I will not argue with you that being able to look at a hand in a hand trap format is very strong and might be worthwhile playing. If you happen to have the Fiendsmith package just lying around and you want to play Infernobles, go for it. I think that it is a very strong option, and if you have access to it, go ahead. But if you don't have access to it, do not fear, do not fret. You do not need it to play the deck at its full potential, and it's just a very strong engine to play. But anyway, that is it for this video, guys. Please comment down below what you guys have done with the Fiendsmith stuff, and please let me know if you guys have been able to figure out some extra space in the extra deck, because that is one of the biggest turnoffs for this entire thing for me, is the fact that you're literally playing one of each Infernoble name. So like I said, it's very convoluted. It just feels less like Infernoble, even though you are playing a plethora of Infernoble cards in the main deck. It's just less Infernoble, mostly Fiendsmith. And if I want to play Fiendsmith, I'd play Fiendsmith Snake Eyes. But anyway, you guys stay safe, stay healthy. This is Charles from Team COG, signing out.